Like to take a moment of reflection. Thank you. All right, we need confirmation of the agenda. We'll do that one. Is there anything to add before we do that? Bob?
Yes, I had an item to add under new business, Jerry.
Okay, need that item announced or?
I'll just refer to it as, how about uncaptured assessment revenue?
Okay. Thank you, Bob. So with that addition, mover for confirmation of the agenda. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Rhonda. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have disclosure of pecuniary interest. Now, or if you have some at the time, let us know. Next is the consent agenda. We have one item on there, and that's the draft budget advisory committee minutes of January the 17th. We'll get that on the floor. Mover for that item. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Hugh. Any comments or questions on those draft minutes? All in favor? Yes, I should vote too. That's carried. All right, we have one delegation this evening. We have Trevor Kipfer. Looks like Frida's here as well. From the Millbank and District Recreation Association, the Lyle Yost Memorial Park funding request. So, yep. So the floor is yours, Trevor. Welcome. You have to push the button for the mic. And the floor is yours.
Perfect. And actually, I guess I can just ask you to swap slides if I just click to the right. Is that all? Yeah. Oh, they'll do it. They'll do it for me. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Chair and Council Perthes, for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Trevor Kipfer. I am with the Millbank Recreation Association. Sitting in the back there is Frida Kipfer. She's the heart and soul of the Millbank Recreation Association. And today we're just looking at, we're looking for some funding for some improvements to the ball diamond. So the first slide I have up there, just to kind of give a little bit of background over the last decade or so. So back in 2014 on the bottom diamond, we had a windstorm come and knock a couple of our towers down. They were replaced at that time for a little over $40,000. And if you could go to the next slide. Following that, an engineer, BM Ross, they came and they did a review of some of the light standards at the park. And they found that the ones in the upper ball diamond were in the worst condition. So at that time, they gave them a 5-year life cycle. So we replaced them in 2019 for $74,500. They were a steel structure previously. We replaced them with, it's called Stresscrete. It's like a concrete kind of material with LED lights. So they were originally metal halide lights. The big pain with them is they take a long time to fire up. And they're not near as nice as the LED lights, plus they consume a little bit more energy. So anyway, those lights were replaced in 2019, and now we're 4 years later, I guess, in 2023, and now we're looking to do a similar thing for the bottom diamond in the park. If you could just go to the next slide. So just kind of taking a look at some of the light standards right now. So I just took a couple of pictures. I popped down there. So BM Ross, so these light standards are about 30 years old. In BM Ross's report, they said the towers are designed for a 1 in 30 year wind event. So with no factor safety. So 2 of them actually did come down. We've replaced them. There's still 4 of them that are of the I guess of the same quality that the ones that would have went down would have been. There were some reinforcements done on them. So anyway, there's a condition of them right now. If we just go to the next slide, we've got more problems. Imagine that on that bottom diamond. You'll see our fences are kind of in poor shape. The picture on the left, you'll see the footings for a lot of the posts. They're heaving out of the ground. Big reason for that being drainage issues within the diamond. And if you look in the picture on the right, you can see that that taller fence has a pretty significant lean on it. If we carry on to the next slide. So again, picture on the left here, a lot of the same. The foundation's heaving from frost and actually cracking in places. And then the picture on the right, you'll see there's just, standing water. And that's pretty typical with any rainstorm. You get that quite a bit. So if we go to the next slide. So 3 things we're looking at doing in 2023. So we would like to replace those light standards kind of for the reasoning that I'd explained previously to match in with those existing lights. We do have a little bit of electrical problems, and like I was saying before with those metal halide lights, we've had lights go off during games, and then by the time you flip the breaker, flip them back on, they take almost 30 minutes or whatever to get back going again. So there are issues with them, and they are getting towards the end of their life. We would like to also look at repairing some of the fence on the bottom diamond as well. And to go with that, some minor drainage improvements on the bottom diamond to prevent any heaving. Basically, to whatever fence we put in there, we don't want the same problems to happen again. So kind of just trying to thinking ahead, trying to work from the ground up. And if you click the next, so the main issues that we face as a park is, of course, a ball diamond is not the most lucrative business in the world. So it's a pretty significant cost to do all this work. And one of the main issues that we have with the park right now is we can't actually issue tax receipts. So I've had businesses, I guess Paul and I were talking with one business owner last year, and he wanted to give a donation, but it's like we can't give receipts. So it's always a deterrent. It's a little bit of a, then they may spend their money elsewhere kind of thing. So it's really nice for us to have that option where, if people want to invest in the community, that we can actually issue a tax receipt. So another thing we want to do with this is, we feel that this would be something that we'd look at paying off over a number of years. So I had actually got a quote from Wagler Electric. They had done the original work in 2019 for the top diamonds for around $75,000. That cost is at around $108,000 currently is what they quoted me at. So again, they're pretty significant costs, but we feel with the revenue of the park, some support of the community, and some of the events and stuff that we have, that this can get paid off over a number of years. In 2018, I believe it took 2 years, and again, the township was very generous in the support of that. But through some of our initial payments, support from the township and donors, we were able to get that dealt with in a couple of years. So if we go to the next slide, why we think this is worthwhile for the township. So the park is quite well used. There's a men's slow pitch league out of there, about 12 teams that runs 3 nights a week. One women's slow pitch team that plays there once a week. There's a men's fastball team, plays there minimum once a week. Ladies 3 pitch. And we also have rentals pretty frequently on Friday evenings from various church groups, as well as rentals in the weekends as well. So I would say for the most part, and Frida could probably comment on this as well, throughout the summer from May till say September, the diamond is pretty well, it's quite well utilized. And then if you just click one more. So another reason, so the township's made investment in the park. We're looking at getting some new playground put in. And rather than us, waiting and letting all these kind of issues at the park become big problems, it's nice to have that continual maintenance. Our hope is that, we can pick off some of these things slowly over time, as opposed to letting the park kind of get a little bit run down, which I feel like it did in maybe the mid-2010s kind of thing. So yeah, we're just trying to keep up with this stuff and make the park look nice. I'll be honest, I've run some tournaments out of there, and I don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling when I'm sitting there and the diamonds are leaning and there's obvious issues that I feel like can be addressed. And then if you just go to the last slide here, again, so the park itself, it's a good opportunity for volunteers, community engagement. We have the ballpark cleanups, we have events that we run out of there. And yeah, we think it's a very positive thing for the Township of Perth East. And yeah, that's all I have to present. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Trevor, for your presentation. So this time, is there any questions from members of the committee? We'll start with Amanda.
Thank you so much, Trevor, for your presentation. So I noticed you mentioned you got a quote for the electrical piece. So that sounds like that's like the most pertinent point. And then there was 2 other asks.
Mhm.
Do we have a sense of estimates on those? And if you were to prioritize the 3 projects, like what could that look like?
Yeah, so I think our hope with this was, again, of going through the process where we can get charitable tax receipts. We were hoping to kind of deal with a lot of this at one time. So those other costs, I guess, we wanted to get a sense of, where the township was at before we really pursued, looking into fencing and the drainage. I'm not too concerned about. Perforated tile is quite cheap, and I think we could get. There's local contractors that play in ball leagues in the park that I feel like we could get out to do the work for relatively, a couple days worth of work kind of thing. And then the fencing is one thing. It's a bit of a wild card. I'm not real sure. I'd definitely be looking for a little bit of expertise or some quotes or suggestions from contractors. But yeah, that's something that I'd want to look into. Getting that quote back, so I got the quote from Wagler Electric last week for $108,000. That was a little higher than I was, if it was $75,000, now it's $108,000. I'm not totally shocked. But I could certainly see this being a little bit more of a upfront cost than I had originally anticipated. But that being said, I'd say the lights are probably the number one priority. And the hope is looking at the fencing, kind of trying to do as much as we can at once. If we went through this process in 2018, I don't want to be here every year. You guys get sick of me. You're probably already sick of me, but anyway, here we are.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. Anyone else? You?
Thanks, Trevor. Just one question. Shall we use the term kind of ballpark, what you think that you would possibly be able to raise in a year, or if there's a benchmark that you try to reach?
Yeah, so the revenue of the park, like I said, it's not the most lucrative business in the world. Just for our annual rentals, we're usually making kind of $8,000 or $9,000 a year once you look at our total revenue, take out our expenses kind of thing. We have been running, so I've been taking on running some slow pitch tournaments. I personally play in some out of Mitchell. I don't think there's any reason that Millbank would be. I think it's a great spot to host events like that. So we're trying to get more momentum running events like that, and hopefully raise a little more money that way. That being said, that's probably going to be an extra few thousand a year kind of thing. The tax receipts are the donations, again, is where, I'm going to keep coming back to that because, if we're only making $10,000 a year, we could probably match that in donations. And that's just people giving that money, freely. So, if we can double our revenue in the year just by giving the people the opportunity to give, that's definitely a big positive for us.
Yeah, another question, Rhonda?
I think the last time we held the loan and then you paid it back. Is that what you're looking for again? Or you're looking for us to give you the money and you're...
Well, yeah, I think we'd certainly look at paying this back over a number of years. Now, I think the last time the township was quite generous and they gave at the end of this 2 years, they gave a larger contribution to kind of just settle it. So, I would love, if the township could hold the debt kind of thing, and we pay it back and the donations can come into the park. Kind of, I see kind of a, maybe a 3 to 5 year kind of turnaround to get this dealt with. It's certainly not a small amount of money, but it's something, I know we've got around 30,000 sitting in the bank right now, so we can, put a small dent in it. And, if we're getting our revenue and if we have an initial contribution from the township, it'd be something that we'd have to deal with over a little bit of time.
Okay, and just going back to what Amanda was talking, this 150,000, that would do fencing, drainage, and lights.
So I think the 150 is probably a little light right now. After hearing that 108, I'm guessing will be, probably between, the drainage. I feel like we could probably do for maybe like kind of 10,000 kind of thing. Maybe not even that much. The fencing is a big wild card for me. I would, think 175 is probably your lower end right now, but that's just a guess. I wouldn't know that until I've gotten some quotes. I think with the fencing, we're hoping to do something fairly simple. You know, I don't know if we need a big high fence. My only worry is kind of the behind the home plate, kind of where it's overarching. I just don't really have a whole lot of insight on that right now.
Okay, excuse me, we do have a staff report coming up in a little bit too. Any more questions of Trevor? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, so the last time when we gave funding to the organization, I think it was paid back before the debenture was over, right? Becky, maybe you know more than I do about that, or recall more than I do, but I think we gave 5 years and it was paid back after like 3. Is that, do you know?
I think it was a couple years, but again, I think the township had made a contribution after the second year.
Okay.
I don't know if there was some money in the budget that was found put toward that, but anyway, that's what I recall.
Yeah,
So
I just recall it being paid back quicker than we had anticipated
Sure.
the last time around. So I just thought I'd bring that up, that
Sure.
the community's been really supportive of the park in the past. So
And maybe we can, you know, when we get to the staff report, is there any more questions for Trevor? Seeing none? Thanks, Trevor. So we'll deal with this in a couple spots here in our agenda. Appreciate your work at the association and Frida and all the rest of the volunteers. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to move into some reports, staff reports. Paul is going to move to the seat. I won't call it the hot seat. Oh, it's a good seat. So let's give Paul a minute or two there. The first one is 7.1.1. It's the reserve and reserve funds. So take your time, Paula, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair Smith. The first report before the committee tonight is the Reserve and Reserve Funds report for 2023. Now, it's important to have adequate reserve balances to weather the storms of unforeseen expenses. It provides ongoing financial stability for the corporation and a little bit of financial flexibility as far as mitigating risk and weathering those uncertain times, as I said before. So currently, reserve levels at the time of the 2019 asset management plan were inadequate. They weren't sufficient for the actual replacement of the tangible capital assets within the plan. So council had passed a resolution in 2020 to increase capital contributions by $56,000 annually for the tax supported assets, and then for the rate supported assets by $3,400 a year, which would be your water and sewer assets. Now, I would caution council or the committee on that, as that does not include inflation. That's a point in time at 2019 values for the assets. We all know what costs have done in the last couple of years. So attached to the report is the continuity of reserve schedules, and that will show the estimated ending balance for 2022 reserves, as well as the projected balance for the 2023 reserves. Now, please note there is minor adjustments carrying on as changes to the budget may happen tonight, as well as there's the year-end transactions that are still being completed. So the reserves are proposed to decrease by $1.5 million for 2023. And this is mainly attributable to water projects, which total an $851,000 draw on reserves, as well as 2022 projects being carried forward to 2023, and that's for just over $500,000. And in those projects that are being carried forward from 2022 are highlighted yellow in the attached capital schedule to the report. And as well as I wanted to make the committee aware of the 2019 modernization funding balance is $115,000. And those projects have been carried forward. They're part of the Carry Forward 2022 projects. So if there's any questions, I can answer them now.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions for the reserve and reserve funds? We'll do this one now. Yeah, no questions? All right, we're gonna have a motion here that the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received a report entitled Reserve and Reserve Funds dated February 28, 23, prepared by the Treasurer for information. Mover? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Hugh. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Stuff. Thanks, Paula. And the next one, unfunded capital and long-term debt.
Okay, so the unfunded capital and long-term debt report for 2023 is in the package. It shows us where we're ending with our unfunded capital, which are projects that are multi-year projects or projects that came in over budget that weren't funded that need to be funded going forward. So the 2022 year-end unfunded capital has a balance of $344,000, and you'll note that the Shakespeare Sewer project for the resident share has been fully funded in 2022. So there was a decrease to the unfunded balance. For the projected unfunded balance at the end of 2023, based on the draft budget presented, is $303,000. And then the next schedule in the report deals with the long-term debt for the municipality, and that involves the third-party loans as well for the tile drain and municipal drains, and that is a total of $664,000. And that's my report, if there's any questions.
Thanks, Paula. Any questions of the unfunded? Seeing no questions, have a motion that Perth East Budget Advisory Committee receive the report entitled Unfunded Capital and Long-Term Debt dated February 28th, 2023, prepared by the Treasurer for information. Moved by Bob, seconded by Rhonda. Any comments, questions? All in favor? That was carried. Thanks for that one, Paula. 7.1.3 is the recreation facility funding application, Lyle Yost Memorial Park. Is this Becky's turn or combination?
Paula gave me the nod there. So, so the Millbank Recreation Association applied for facility funding. As noted in the report, their project does, what's the word I'm looking for, is eligible under our funding. And they've originally had asked or indicated that the project would be $150,000, and they were asking for $50,000 from this funding source. If there's any questions?
Thanks, Becky. So we had a little bit of discussion. Any other questions of this report? So yeah, well, go ahead, Amanda.
Becky, do we know of any grants coming up that this type of thing might fall under?
Any other grants? I think Sydney forwards the information to them. But that's, yeah.
Because I think we've got petroleum grants in the past. We've been successful. So we worked with community groups before in submitting applications.
Okay. Any other questions? So go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, in the recommendation, it doesn't speak to us sort of giving a loan in this situation, right? And that is what we've done in the past for light standards quite a few times. I think we had an assessment done, I don't know, a decade and a half ago, probably, maybe less, but where all of light standards across municipality were assessed, and we gave a loan. So I think that needs to be included in here. If we're to go ahead, we give the the $50,000 grant that they're asking for, and then sort of debenture that loan out as they pay it back with their fundraising. So I don't see that in here, the loan part of it, that's all.
Yep, kind of what I was going to ask. Rhonda?
Being that their costs are gonna be more than 150, I'm thinking more like 175, according to what Trevor, I'd be willing to up the grant to say 65 or 70 even, because we know that the costs are gonna be more than 150.
Yeah, thanks, Rhonda. So there's more comments. The one comment I have is, can we clarify? Are they requesting a grant or a loan? That's kind of where I'm thinking that. Paula?
I can address that question. I think in my discussions with Trevor, we spoke about the previous grant that was provided as well as a loan for the lighting on the upper diamond. And we were going to go the same route as that intended. But the first go, we were looking for support from the committee as to whether they were going to support the project or not. And then we would project or propose that it would be a debenture with the township as previous and paid over time, probably looking 3 to 5 years maybe.
Okay, that clarifies a few things. Thank you, Paula. Amanda?
Just to comment, I think, so we're in 4-year terms here. So we're in the first year of 4-year terms. So I might propose that it could be over 4 years.
Okay. If I may, I don't think loans carry, like, sorry, what I'm trying to say is the length of the term of the council, we can have loans that go past that as well, but we have in the past. Any comment, Mike?
Well, yeah, I just want to circle back to Paul's comment. I think what we're looking for is a combination of a grant for an amount and a loan for a different amount, totaling all of the projects. I did some quick math when Trevor was speaking. I came up with about 193,000 based on those very rough estimates, which is what they are. But I think what Paula said is we're looking for, is council comfortable with the combination of grant? And if so, what does that grant look like? We heard from Mayor Eggett's perhaps 65,000. The initial ask was 50. That has changed based on what Trevor information he got from Wagler. And then staff would work with the association on an agreement and the terms are great if we have direction from council or from the advisory committee, about what terms we're looking for, we can go away with the association and come up with those terms, bring the agreement back to council for approval. But it's from a budget standpoint, we need to know how much is grant and how much is loan.
Okay, that clarifies a few things. Anyone willing to move something to that effect? Another question, Rhonda, go ahead.
Something else council needs to think, or committee, sorry, needs to think about is interest rate. Last time it was 0. Are we going to keep it at 0? I think that's automatic. Is it with all the light standards? Okay, just so that everybody's clear on that.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. So we have a possible number of 65 for a grant, the remaining loan. Jeremy?
Yeah, and in the past we've had where communities, if the loan wasn't paid back within the 5-year term or whatever it was, it got debentured out on an area rate. If I can recall that happening in the past, if it doesn't get paid back. But I'll make a motion if we're prepared. I'll motion that we give 65 with the remainder to come as a loan over a 5-year term, 0%.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Need someone to second that. Amanda? Any further comments or questions? Just to go ahead, Amanda.
Just circling back on the terms, I support the motion, but my preference would have been just to keep it within the 4 terms. I think, we sit as a committee and as council for four years, and so I think just for me, from my standpoint, I just think a 4-year agreement makes a lot more sense. Recognizing that that's not necessarily the case, it doesn't need to be, but it's a small technicality. But that's the only thing I will add.
Couple of hands. Paula?
I just wanted to add to that motion, I'll need to know where we're gonna fund it from.
I was going to make that
Okay.
comment that we do have 72,426 in the community investment fund, so that would take quite a bit from there. Okay, so we have that motion that I could read out, Ashley.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
It does. Thanks, and I'm gonna, Jeremy's moved it and Amanda seconded it, so I'm just gonna read what we've kind of come up with, and hopefully it matches what your thoughts are there. The Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received a recreation facility funding application, Lalios Memorial Park Report, prepared by the Rec and Community Services Manager, dated February 28th, 2023, for information. And further, that the facility funding application from the Millbank and District Recreation Association for lighting, fencing, and drainage project be approved. And the funding amount of $65,000 be funded from the Community Investment Reserve with a 5-year funding agreement established. And further, that the Budget Advisory Committee approve the Lalios Memorial Park lighting, fencing, and drainage project as a community organization project under the corporate donation policy CA 1.03.01 under the following conditions: that the revenue and expenses from the project go through the township books adhering to the township's procurement policy. And further, that staff work with the association on a loan agreement for the balance of the project. So that would be the 65 grant, and according to the CO's kind of calculations, 193, so it's possibly for 128,000 of loan. How's that sound to the mover and the seconder? Good stuff. Any more comments and questions? Or questions? Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So I guess the question is, while we're about to do this, is that we have another ask on the next agenda item that will be over and above that amount. So I won't be voting in favor of this just for that idea. I would like this to not exceed the community investment reserve balance in total of the two projects.
Okay, thanks for that, Andrew. Bob?
I tend to agree with Andrew that if someone comes and asks for $50,000, that's what I would be prepared to support. Perhaps as the costs have changed, they wish to amend their request. And I guess moving forward, I'm sure they'll have to submit lots of information to go with the expected total costs. But yeah, just in the report, it was an ask of 50,000, and so I agree with Andrew's comments.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Just asking for a recorded vote.
The recorded vote. There we go. So, no more questions, comments?
Okay, Councillor, or I guess right now, Agats? Yes. Deputy Mayor McDermott?
Yes, sorry.
Deputy Mayor McDermott? Councillor Broadhagen?
Yay.
Councillor McAlpine?
Nay.
Councillor Matheson? Councillor McMillan?
Nay.
Councillor Smith?
Yay.
Okay, so that's 4-3 carried.
Thanks, everyone. Moving on to 7.1.4, recreation funding application for the Broxton School. Becky and Paula, floor.
Yeah, so this is an application, again, under the facility funding program, and the project is eligible for funding. The project itself is painting of the school museum. The total cost of the project is estimated at $10,700, and they're asking for $8,000.
Thank you. Any comments or questions of this report? None from the members. CEO Mike has.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we came across some information recently as it pertains to Broxton School, and Broxton School, back in 1988, the Council of North East Hope passed a bylaw noting the school as a heritage property. So it doesn't necessarily change the request. What it does change is that we need to contact the Ontario Heritage Trust and get clarification from them about what the exterior painting needs to look like and what that may have impacts as it relates to the project themselves. We just discovered this week that it was actually registered, and yeah, it complicates things as it relates to what they can and cannot do with the property. I don't think I shouldn't comment because I don't really know, but we've contacted the Ontario Heritage Trust and have yet to hear back from them.
Okay, thank you. What do we wish to do with this one? We do have a motion, but we need some numbers. Hugh? Anyone else? Another meeting, will that delay the entire budget process? Or Paula?
Yeah, as it's proposed now, it's part of the draft budget. So if we want to delay it, the inclusion in the budget, then yes. Otherwise, we can withdraw it and present it again in the future for an addition to the budget.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
I'd like to see that we do it on a condition that we allow the $8,000 to be granted to them on the condition of they get the approval from the Heritage Committee and everything goes through. And if everything doesn't go through, then the money stays in the in our budget. And I realize there's a deficit, so in this account that we wanted to take it from. So I'm proposing that we take the balance from the Parkland Reserve, whatever we need over and above from the community investment, and I think that is like $584. We'd have to take out of Parkland Reserve because I think there's 7,426 left in this account if we take the 65 out for the mill bank. If I'm doing my math correctly.
Thank you, Rhonda. Paula.
So just to add to that, in the reserve for the community investment reserve, I've already included a withdrawal from the 50,000 and the 8,000 for these two. So we would just be withdrawing another 15 to bump the 50 to 16. So you'd still have 19 in that reserve at the end of 2023.
Is that clear as mud for everyone? So the 72 already has the 50 that was requested.
The 72 is the 2022 ending balance, sorry. So then 2 columns over, those next 3 columns in that reserve schedule, there's a $20,000 contribution that's included in the 2023 budget, bringing it to 92. Then I had included the 58 withdrawal, which would bring it to a 34 at the end of 2023, but we've bumped it 15, so now there's 19. There would be 19 left.
Okay, so there would be enough. Yeah. You wouldn't need that extra. Okay, so do we have a mover? You going to move that we do all this, the 8,000 community investment fund? Okay, seconder, Rhonda.
I'll second, but I would like added that on the condition that it does get done, not however you want to word that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, that should be added. So waiting for Ashley. I think unless there's no more comments, questions on this. Making our clerk work tonight. Thank you. Moved by Hughes, second by Rhonda, that the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received the recreation facility funding application, Broxton School Report, prepared by the Recreation and Community Services Manager, dated February 28, 2023, for information, and further that the facility funding application from the Broxton School Committee for the painting of the Broxton School Museum project be approved, and the funding of the $8,000 funded from the Community Investment Reserve, with a funding agreement established, conditional upon approval from the Heritage Trust. We have a mover and a second, or any more comments, questions? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, staff reports done. Now we're going to the capital budget, and I think we're going to have a PowerPoint. Paula, I guess we do have a number of these listed, all the different sections, so we'll go through, and I guess if we have questions as we go, we're going to raise them and we will address them. Yeah, thanks, Paula. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the PowerPoint for tonight is the 2023 draft capital budget on February 28th. So to start off, the budget premise, the ending capital balances are transferred to reserves or unfunded capital as we incur balances left there. So year-end surplus or deficit are transferred to the corporate reserve pending council's direction. So once that year-end surplus or deficit from 2022 is known, a report will come to council to decide where to divvy up the surplus or deficit. Separate project reports are not prepared for the regular furniture and fixture items, which are adjusted by CPI annually. And then the last item here is the carry forward projects from 2022 are included, and in most cases that they've been postponed due to supply chain issues. So we had a couple submitted questions that came in. The first question was on agenda items 7, 3, 4, 10, 11, 14, and 15. And it was noted that they have components that will benefit local users for drainage and increased fire flows. Is it possible to break down the detailed specific funding sources for these items? And then a follow-up question on that is, are the funding sources discretionary or policy-based? So there are slides later in the presentation that address these projects. So it'll be slide 33, 36, 47, and 52. And they'll break out the funding, but just as a high level here, the reserve policy FI 115-01 allows for the use of Public Works water wastewater reserves for asset acquisition, rehabilitation, and replacement. And these projects are proposed to draw $1.5 million from those reserves, as well as use of the Canada Community Building Fund, which is the former federal gas tax funding. And this project, the road reconstruction portion of this project, fits well into that program. And we're proposing to use $406,000 from there. The remaining funding from these projects is a transfer from the operating fund to capital from the Public Works area. And that's in the amount of $643,000. So, long story short, those reserves are discretionary, but they are driven by policy allowing us to use for these projects. So, to comment on the project itself, the replacement and upsizing of the water main on the road segments will provide an improvement to the fire flows. So this will address the issue on the note on the fire flows across Milverton townwide. The streets have water mains that are in close proximity to the reservoir, and our treated water comes into the system and requiring upsizing. So that's going to be addressed within this project and will increase. That's why the comment on the increased fire flows was in the project details. So the next question, so for items 7, 3, 4, 10, and 11, have wording that reference drainage, and items 7, 3, 4, 14, and 15 are these additional drainage projects, or are they the same projects? So the answer to that is no, they aren't. These are storm sewer replacements, which will occur in conjunction with complete road reconstructions. So complete road reconstructions includes your roads, storm, anything that's below the road, your storm, sewer, water, sidewalks, curb, gutter, they're going in. So as part of the project, storm sewers will be upsized to improve the collection locally. And a follow-up question on that, is there a Drainage Act requirement for the drainage work? No, these are storm sewer drains. They're not municipal drains, so they don't fall under the Drainage Act. And then the final question that came in, how are surface water and drainage issues identified in settlement areas? So one of the identifications is through the foreman patrolling and observing areas of ponding water on the right-of-ways. And then concerns from residents over multiple years have also been a consideration, as well as historical flooding events have been noted in this area. So that completes the questions that have been submitted beforehand. So just as we're going along, Chair Smith had noted if there's questions, just raise them and I'll try and answer them at that time. So budget changes that have happened. So operating budget changes that have occurred after the January 17th Budget Advisory Committee meeting. There's been a few minor changes. We started at a 6.192% after assessment growth increase. And there's been a few small adjustments. The clerk's vital statistics revenue has been adjusted closer to the 3-year average and the 2022 actuals. And that increased revenues by $2,200, bringing the after assessment growth down to a 6.13%. And then we also received the final invoice for the insurance allocation, so that's been allocated out, and I was able to adjust that down by $2,200, so a decrease to the expenses, brought the levy change after assessment growth down to 6.106%. And then there's some net zero changes that I've made as well on a few items that we've missed and updated. So there's extrication equipment fundraising revenue that's been deferred from 2022 in the amount of $12,000. And that's been deferred to 2023 for Milverton Fire Station, and that'll be for the purchase of extra extrication accessories. And again, that's a net zero impact to the levy. So the next item was the Lyle Yost Park lighting fencing that came in. I added the $50,000 transfer from Community Investment Reserve as well as the expense donation. So we'll bump that to $65,000 on each side, and that'll be a net zero impact as well. Then there was the logging revenue at the landfill. The revenue didn't come in prior to finalizing the receipts for 2022. So that has been deferred, the final receipt of approximately 24,000. And that is a net zero impact because that revenue coming in will be transferred to the landfill asset reserve. So the next item is the conservation authorities, the operating budgets for the Grand River Conservation Authority and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority came in lower than what we had projected an estimate in the draft budget by $979. So now we're down to a 6.095% after assessment growth levy increase. And a couple more net zero impacts is the Milverton All Wheels Park was deferred from 2022 donations, and its anticipated 2023 activity has been included in the 2023 budget.
Write the number down, but it's about 4.5%. I think that their budget will be, but I think ours will be 6.1. I think ours are going up, and that's because they appropriated on assessment. So our assessment is way up, so that's why ours is 6.1. But a couple, $2,500 or something, roughly more than we paid that last year.
Okay. Did
But
they?
you should be receiving that pretty soon.
Do you know if they changed the draft budget that they had submitted us? They didn't make any changes to the draft?
I don't think so. I think it was pretty close to it.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we do cover those under correspondence, but.
Yep.
Hold
And so that was in the amount of $266,000, and there'll be $50,000 transfer in from DC reserves for Parks and Rec, and then $216,000 from the deferred donations and additional donations going forward. And then the Broxton School painting project came in after the last budget meeting on January 17th, and that has been included at the $8,000 transfer from Community Investment Reserves for net zero impact. And then municipal drains were reviewed and adjusted to the estimated 2023 costs based on current activity, which reduced expenses by $2,400. So that brings us down to a 6.109% after assessment growth. Now, the capital budget changes after the agenda circulation. There was one budget change, and this is the learning management system project that was a carry forward from 2022. That did not get finalized for 2022, so it has been carried forward to the 2023 in the amount of $22,351. But that is a net zero impact because that gets transferred from the corporate reserve because it's part of that 2019 modernization funding that we received. So a summary of the capital plan is on this slide, and it shows your revenues compared to, your revenues and expenses for the 2023 budget as proposed to the 2022 budget. So the revenue is proposed to decrease by $782,000 for the capital fund, and this is in part due to one-time grants and donations that total just under $1 million, and these are Canada Community Revitalization for Trail funding. There's the modernization intake 3, the IT review, as well as the carry forward projects that are moved out. So your expenses are up by $442,000, and this includes carry forward projects from 2022 of just under $600,000. So revenue fund transfers are increased by CPI, the 5.867%, and the reserves, unfunded, and trust transfers are made as required for the current year capital projects proposed in the budget. So on to the general government capital projects. The first one is under administration CAO. Project report on the agenda is 7.3.1.1. This is an organizational structure review, and that is a carry forward of the 2019 modernization funding, and it will be funded from the carry forward from the corporate reserve because that's where that funding was transferred, and that's budgeted in the amount of $78,404. Next project is the records management project. This is also a carry forward from 2022, and this is to finish the implementation of the records management software, including staff training, and this is where we're digitizing records and preserving them going forward. This is going to be funded from the modernization grant, which is from the corporate reserves right now, in the amount of $16,691. So information technology general reports, or general projects. There's a few projects here in the general IT to improve our network situation. There's a NAS, which is a network attached storage system for our backup storage space. This will eliminate the need for an extra server. So we'll be reducing the cost for our servers with this. We're also proposing to implement additional antivirus software, and this will provide an additional layer of security as well as improving our zero-day protection. Then the final project within the general projects for IT is to implement a remote monitoring and management system, and this allows for Matt to deploy printers and any updates. He can manage cell phones remotely, and it provides reports for identifying malicious software and stuff. So we'll make Matt's job easier. So this is proposed to come from the information technology reserve in the amount of $12,400. So Information Technology Special Project 2. This was not included in the package because this is the one that was overlooked that we added after the agenda circulation. So this is the learning management system, and it's coming from the modernization funding, and it's a carry forward project from 2022. It'll allow for tracking of course completion and it'll document the compliance of the necessary training for staff. Funded from modernization funding in $13,851 and $8,500 from the Information Technology Reserve.
Thanks, Paula. That takes care of general government.
Yeah, there's two more.
Oh, am I
Two
not?
more.
Am I looking at the wrong agenda?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I might have broken them out.
I see.
Maybe.
Yep, go ahead.
So asset management project, agenda item 7314. This is a continuation of reviewing the asset inventory to comply with our PSAB 3180, which is our asset retirement obligations, as well as gearing up for our July 1, 2025 requirements on OREG 58817, which requires a review of our proposed levels of service and the funding for those proposed levels of service. This is an amount transferred from the modernization grant funding in the amount of $20,626. Chart of accounts reconfiguration. This is to reorganize the legacy chart of accounts for efficiencies in the reporting and use by staff. The current chart of accounts has evolved through a number of treasurers, and it needs to be reorganized and updated for efficient reporting and tracking by staff. The budget committee will note that there was $30,000 one-time transfer to capital in the operating budget for this. And that's the end of general government.
Thanks, Paula.
Yeah.
We'll carry on. Recreation and culture.
So on to recreation and culture capital projects. We have the arena and banquet hall building project, agenda item 7321 and 7323. These are to replace sections of roof on the arena and banquet hall, and there was pre-budget approval provided by council on January 10th, 2023, resolution 2309, for funding of $385,000 from the building betterment reserve. So the arena HVAC system. This is a project to replace HVAC units 6 through 8 and heater unit 1. And the funding will come $68,000 from the arena capital reserves. And there is a transfer to capital included in the operating budget for just under $35,000. So the pool main infrastructure project, pump house floor repair. Agenda item 7324. This is a carry forward project from 2022 budget, and it's to repair the pump house filtration room floor. And that's $6,900 coming from the pool capital reserve and $14,000 coming from a transfer to capital, which was included in the operating budget, for a total of $21,000 project. So we have a walking trail and soccer pitch project, agenda item 7325. And this is an installation of the walking trail from the Greenwood Park to the G2G trail. It also includes grading and drainage for construction of a soccer field. The proposed funding is from the Parks and Recreation Development Charges Reserve of $27,000, and then $3,000 was included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. for a total project cost of $30,000. Morningdale Park Project Playground Structure is a carry forward project from 2022 budget. And this is a new playground structure at Morningdale Park, and it's funded from the Parkland and Corporate Asset Reserves. And it's $61,000 from Parkland and $75,000 from the Corporate Reserve, for a total of $68,500. Yost Park Project Playground Structure is also a carry forward project from 2022, and it includes the new playground structure at the Yost Park, and this is $81,000 coming from the Corporate Asset Reserve.
Question, Jeremy?
Yeah, you got grants for those two parks?
I don't believe so. So now we're on to protection services. So fire stations, furniture, fixtures, and small equipment, as well as the hydrants. This includes annual purchasing of the miscellaneous small equipment. The Milverton station has the $10,000, as well as this is where that $12,000 extra fundraising money for the extrication equipment is. Sebringville and Shakespeare stations have $10,000 each, as well as there's $6,400 included for improvements to hydrants. So there's $12,000 from donations for the Milverton extrication fundraising, and $36,400 is a transfer to the fire capital included in the operating budget. Bunker gear, SCBA bottles, fire hose and utility trailer, and the fire department's central furniture and fixtures. This includes annual bunker gear replacements, and this year it's been proposed for a 2-year replacement due to the supply chain issues for receiving the replacement gear, and there was a pre-budget approval received February 7th, 2023. It includes SCBA bottle replacement, $9,500, fire hose replacements of $15,500, and a utility trailer replacement, or utility trailer purchase for $2,700. This is a total project cost of $68,695, and this is a transfer to the fire capital, which is included in the operating budget. Shakespeare Station building improvements. This has a couple projects. There's the replacement of the overhead doors and openers, which received pre-budget approval in Resolution 22-368 in the amount of $23,500, and that's to be funded from the Building Betterment Reserve. The next portion under here is the replacement repairs to the steel siding and windows in the amount of $20,000. And then there's replacement of the radio tower and infrastructure of $50,000. Those two projects are proposed as a transfer to fire capital included in the operating budget of $70,000.
Got a question for Rhonda. Go ahead.
Bill, do we still need the tower if we get fiber optic in Shakespeare?
No, we don't. But we do need the rest of the equipment that goes with the tower. So when the announcement was made by Mornington that they were going to take the fiber into Shakespeare, I had the radio contractor evaluate the tower based on knowing that we'd be able to use fiber. They're able to use the existing tower and connect it to other towers in the county through fiber, but we would still have to replace some of the transmitting equipment that goes with the tower. So that project was actually going to be proposed in 2024. But if council decides to leave the 50,000 in, we could start working on that this year rather than load everything on to 2024.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to transportation services capital projects. So Public Works pickup purchases. There is a 2021 carry forward project, the 1-ton duo with dump box and plow truck replacement of M10 in the amount of $110,000, which is proposed $76,500 from Development Charges Reserve, Public Works. And then there's a transfer to capital included in the operating budget of $33,500. Public Works tri-axle truck purchase. There's a scheduled replacement of M30, and that's in the amount of $386,000. Received pre-budget approval by the Budget Advisory Committee on the January 17th meeting. And then there's a 2022 carry forward of the box and plow unit of M34 in the amount of $168,000. So the total project cost of these two items is $553,740, and that is included as a transfer to capital within the operating budget. Public Works other equipment. This is the life cycle replacement of a sidewalk snow removal machine, and it replaces M59. And funding for this is proposed from $120,000 from the Public Works Development Charges Reserve and $60,000 from a transfer to capital included within the operating budget for a total project cost of $180,000.
Just on that, I did see it in operation. I have seen it in operation quite a bit in the village here in Melbourne, and kudos for you guys. It probably works for keeping that thing going because it's in pretty shoddy shape. So just thought I'd put that out there.
So Public Works other equipment. There's safety equipment for working in confined spaces of $15,000, and then as-built drawings updated and a little bit of GPS work in the amount of $10,000. And the total project cost of $25,000 is included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. Line 37 pavement preservation and road 109 intersection repairs. So this is to mill and repave the intersection of line 37 and road 109 and provide a fiber mat surface treatment to the line 37 from the Stratford city limits to just east of Perth Road 107. This is in the amount of $383,500 from the Aggregate Resources Reserve. And for the committee's note, this reserve is for rehabilitation of roads used extensively by gravel trucks traveling to and from gravel pits within Huron or Perth East. Sorry. I knew I was going to do that. So line 83 surface overlay. Project includes a surface overlay of line 83 in Carthage, Perth Road 131 to approximately 250 meters west of, and Perth Road 131 to approximately 275 meters east, as well as a surface overlay on line 83 in Hessen from Perth Road 121 to approximately 360 meters east. And this provides a joint tender opportunity with Perth County's 2023 proposed capital work. And this is proposed in the amount of $92,000 as a transfer to capital included within the operating budget. Road 140 reconstruction. This is phase 9 of the Boundary Road reconstruction from the 2022 limit to Perth Line 55. And this is the completion of a multi-year Boundary Road reconstruction project with the municipality of North Perth. And Perth East portion of $400,000 is included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. Thompson Street reconstruction and Galt Street and Fraser Street paving. So there's full urban reconstruction of Thompson Street. That's from Perth Road 107 to the west limit at Sprucedale Public School. And then it also includes completion of the 2022 projects on Galt and Fraser Streets. For a total project cost of $100,500, and this is a transfer to capital, which was included in the operating budget. Pacific Avenue and Fulton Street reconstruction. Road reconstruction of Pacific Avenue from Mill Street East to CPR Road, as well as road reconstruction of Fulton Street, Main Street North to Pacific Avenue. This is in the amount of $1,130,000. Funded from $406,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund, which is formerly the Federal Gas Tax Fund, $81,000 from Public Works Reserve, and then $643,000 included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. So the annual crack sealing projects, and these are crack seal various road sections to preserve the condition of the roads, and this is in the amount of $50,000 from the Public Works Reserve. Wilmot East Hope Road. Preparation of the Wilmot East Hope Road from Perth Line 43 to Line 47, and this is in anticipation of surface treatment within the 2024 budget. This project is funded equally by Wilmot and Perth East per the Boundary Road Agreement, and Perth East portion for the prep work is $30,000, and that is proposed to be transferred from the Public Works Roads Development Charges Reserve. Storm sewer projects. Replacement of storm sewers on Pacific Avenue, Mill Street East to CPR Road, and then replacement of the storm sewer on Fulton Street, Main Street North to Pacific Avenue. And this is part of the total road reconstruction on these streets. So for both projects here, it's $343,000 proposed to be transferred from the Public Works Reserve. Sign and sidewalks. So there's the annual sidewalk replacement of $26,000. And then annual sign allocation for roadside signage of just under $13,000. So a total combined project of $39,046 included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. Bridge and culverts. Annual allocation for the culverts and flood pipes maintenance of $25,000. This is included in the operating budget as a transfer to capital. And then there's the second part of the project, guardrail installation at approaches to the bridge structures in the amount of $30,000 from the bridge reserve. So structure number 64, rehabilitation. This is the structure known as the Ralston Bridge. It's a concrete rigid frame bridge located on Road 129, which is approximately located 100 meters south of line 64. So the total project cost is $245,000 to come from the bridge reserve. So on to the general environment and health.
Sorry.
Yep.
Paula. So that's a lot of projects, and we have a number of questions I think got answered in there from that were originally put out in your slide. And a lot of work going to happen in the township, north, south, east, west, and in between the villages as well. So, yeah, lots happening. Thanks, Paula. Moving on.
Yep. So the landfills, the Southeast Hope landfill expansion. So this is continuation of the expansion activities in accordance with the Environmental Assessment Act in the amount of $42,000 from the landfill asset reserve. Cemetery tombstone and monument realignment. This is work to continue to realign tombstones and monuments at the Knox Wesley United Church Cemetery in the amount of $15,000 from corporate reserves. So on to environment, water and wastewater capital projects. We have the Shakespeare Water System arsenic treatment. This is continuation of the 2022 or 2020 project. It's arsenic treatment project to meet the Environment Conservation and Parks parameters. And it's investing, there is pending grant funding from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Greenstream. And this is just pending on our scope revision and update to the grant application. So this is proposed to come from $390,000 from the water reserve, and then future budgets will include the ISIP green funding pending funding. So Shakespeare Water System pressure tank replacement. This is a $4,000 transfer from the water reserve. Milverton Water System well number 4 rehabilitation. This also includes a permit to take water renewal for the well, and this is in the amount of $30,000 from the water reserve. Milverton Water System water main replacement. So this is the water main replacements on the road reconstruction projects at Pacific Avenue and Fulton Street. And they're in the amount of $667,000 from the water reserve. Water systems chemical pump flow monitor and probes. So this is installation and programming of a chlorine pump flow monitors and installation of new analyzer probes in the amount of $11,000 transferred from the water reserve. Shakespeare Wastewater Treatment Facility, replacement of the raw sewage flow meters and filters, as well as purchase of handheld probes to assist in the monitoring and adjusting of treatment levels in the amount of $40,000 transferred from the wastewater reserve. Milverton Wastewater Treatment Facility. This is to remove and replace all diffusers in aeration cells A1 and A2, as well as replace one blower unit. And that's in the amount of $30,000 transferred from the water reserve, or wastewater reserve. Mill Street West Pumping Station. This is investigation of flow restrictions. And this is proposed for $30,000 transfer from wastewater development charges reserve. Milverton wastewater collection system replacement. This is the wastewater replacement on the road reconstructions of Pacific Avenue and Fulton Street in the amount of $415,000 transferred from the wastewater reserve. So that's the capital projects within the 2023 budget as it's proposed. So now to provide some levy information as to where the 2023 draft budget sits. So since the January meeting results in a 7.56 levy change, and that is equivalent to a 6.11% levy change after factoring in our assessment growth. So now you'll note, the committee will note that there was a few projects tonight presented that are drawing from the community investment reserve, and that is due to community activities returning to pre-COVID levels. So the committee may want to consider adjusting the 2023 budgeted transfer of $20,000 to the community investment reserve back to pre-COVID level, which would be just under $53,000 in 2020. If this was decided by the committee, an increase to the transfer of $33,000. That would increase the levy by 0.35%. So that's just an item for consideration. As well as in the operating budget, it was presented to the committee for options to reduce the overall levy increase if so desired. You could transfer some funds from the corporate reserve due to the higher than normal CPI range for 2023. It's normally in a range of 2 to 3%, and for 2023 we were at a 5.867%. So transferring from the corporate reserves to bring that down to a 2 to 3% CPI would decrease your levy increase by a 1.6% to a 2.14%. So the county budget has passed in principle. We're just currently awaiting the approved levy, ratio, and tax rate bylaws. So the county estimates included in the comparison tables are based on the township's share of the county levy. Education rates are approved and have remained unchanged from 2022, and the 2022 year-end surplus deficit number is not available as of yet. So just a chart for a levy change at glance. So this was presented in the operating budget. It has been modified slightly, not much. So the provincial and external changes are a increase of $1,700 or a decrease to the levy requirement of 0.018%. The municipal changes are an increase of $703,000 or a 7.573%. So overall, the total levy increase is a $701,570 or a 7.56% increase. So this is a projection, an outlook of what your tax bill would look like on $100,000 of assessment compared to last year's tax rates. So for your residential class, the Perth East County and education portions would be a total change of $46.05 on $100,000 worth of assessment. Farmland is a change of $11.51, commercial $57.42, and industrial is $90.68. So these are the tax dollars that are raised on $100,000 of property assessment per class. So in the residential class, there's $937.67 raised on $100,000 of assessment, and it ranges up to $24.25.17 for industrial. So these are just some examples of the various tax classes and the impact on the proposed budget based compared to last year. So for 2023, on a typical residential single-family home, the average assessment is $300,000, and the change from 23 to 22 is the 23 taxes would be $2,813 compared to the 2022 taxes of $2,675. That's an increase of $138.15 or a 5.16%. So your typical standard industrial property, the average assessment within Perth East is $360,000. So comparison of 23 to 22 taxes is $8,731 compared to $8,404 in 2022 for a change of $326.45 or a 3.88% increase. So a typical farmhouse average assessment is $177,700. Comparing 23 to 22 is $1,666 to $1,584 for an increase of $81.83 or a 5.16% increase. So typical farmland with an assessment of $1,448,800. The entire tax bill for 2023 would be $3,396 compared to 2022 of $3,229 for an increase of $166.79 for a 5.16% increase. So a typical small retail commercial property with an average assessment of $202,000. 2023 taxes would be $3,754 compared to 2022 taxes of $3,638 for a change of $115.99, equating to a 3.19% increase. So the benefits to you from the township tax dollars: you receive emergency services from fire and police. You have access 24/7, 365 days a year. There's 3 fire stations that are maintained. 550 kilometers of roads are maintained. This includes winter control as well as roadside maintenance during the summer months. There's 21 kilometers of sidewalk with winter maintenance within the core areas. There's 43 bridges and 63 culverts. Tax dollars include animal control, property standards, bylaw control. There's streetlights, waste management and a landfill site, arena recreational facility, an outdoor swimming pool, 10 parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields, walking paths and trails, and a library. So just to compare the property tax for the township to annual household expenses, for the 2023 township portion of the property taxes, on the average residential assessment of $300,000, it equates to just under $1,500. And this is just comparison to some other annual household expenses. And the ones that I like to note are the basic internet is just under $1,400, pretty much the same as your property taxes for the township. And then your cell phone and basic cell phone plan of $1,200, pretty close to what we're paying for the 2023 township portion of the taxes.
Like you've got food up there for 16,288, and that's the biggest thing on the list.
Mm-hmm.
But Food Freedom Day is about February the 2nd or something now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to, well, you might, but I'm not making $16,000 in a month and a day.
Annual cost.
Yeah, but you work a month, you work until February the 2nd to make enough money to buy your food for the entire year. See what I mean? So somehow that seems high.
It could be high. I Googled it, and this is the average of what I came up with for it. So it could be high. It could be high. So then the best slide is the end.
All right, thanks, Paula.
Yep.
Any comments, questions before we go? We have all these, lots of resolutions here to go through. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So I just marked one down here that kind of came to my mind, the Shakespeare Station radio antenna replacement. So if we're not going to need that $50,000, I wonder if we can just take that off if the fibers looks like it's getting put in through the rest of the community for free. So we don't need to put that $50,000 towards the fiber. And if it's coming sooner rather than later, then maybe we can just take that out of the budget, if that's a possibility, or What's the 50,000 for, I guess, is my question.
Yep. Go ahead, Chief Hunter. You explained it earlier, but go ahead again.
So the initial plan was to replace the tower in Shakespeare. That was prior to the confirmation that we were getting the fiber. So we've reevaluated the tower. We can connect it through fiber to other towers in the county, but there is other equipment that needs to be changed with it. And that was originally going to be proposed in the 2024 budget. But if committee decides to leave that in, we could start that project this year and we wouldn't have to load everything into the 2024 budget.
Thank you. I just remember hearing something at Fire Board about a cost to get the fiber to the building. So that's not in this $50,000.
Like the fiber.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. So I guess C.L. Gibbons is probably the one to ask. The fiber is getting run gratis for the building as just a regular business plan expansion type of thing.
No, the only thing that's been confirmed is that Mornington Communication is running fiber within the village of Shakespeare. That's the only thing I have shared or any information that I have. Beyond that, I have no information.
Thank you.
Okay, Rhonda?
Paula had brought a couple slides there about changing some things back. Do we need to do that before we do all these motions? Like we talked about the community investment, putting it back to 52,000 from 20,000. And also I want to go back to what the actual percentage is. The budget is going up. We talked about 6 point something earlier on, and then it jumped to 7. So am I missing something? Or like if we don't?
So I think we're going to deal with the 20,000 at some point, right, Ashley? The 20,000 to be put back in from the community investment.
Yes, that's one of our last resolutions. Once the levy percentages are decided on, then we would state how much would go into the community investment reserve.
Okay, so you do all the other motions first, and then we'll deal with that. Okay.
Yep, go ahead, Hugh.
Paula, you mentioned that in one of those slides too, that if you took some money from someplace, for the wages, I believe it was, is that captured in any of the things that we're going to be doing now?
That isn't captured in any of the upcoming motions. However, it is for the committee's consideration, and we can do a motion up.
So to answer Hugh, that's the slide. So it's not captured in a motion, but maybe look at that one after we're done this, or?
Yes, so right now what we would be looking to do is to receive all of the reports, so starting with 7.2 and then 7.3, 7.31, 7.32, and so on in the agenda for information, and then we can look at making the changes with the slide that's up on the.
Okay, so we'll quickly go through these and maybe if there's we'll have a break. Okay, so the first one I have is that 7.21 and 2.2, the capital budget summary and detail. Those two set out in the capital budget PowerPoint for February 28th, 2023. Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Need a mover? Jeremy, second by Rhonda. Comments, questions on that? All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. The next grouping we have is here the 7.3.1 to 7.3.1.5. The CAO review, the clerk records management project, IT projects, asset management project, and the chart of accounts restructure. That those items set out in the general government under department capital project reports for the February 28, 2023 meeting of the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Mover for that one, Bob, seconded by Hugh. Any more comments and questions on that one? All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. We're receiving these for information. The next grouping is 7.3.2.1 to 27, the arena, the roof replacement, the arena heating, ventilation, and AC, the hall building component, the roof replacement, the pool main facility infrastructure, the pump house floor repair, Greenwood Park to G2G trail and soccer pitch, the Morningdale Park playground structure, and the playground structure at Lyle Yost Park. So those items set out in the Recreation and Cultural Services under Department Capital Projects reports for February 28th, 2023. The Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Need a mover for that one, Amanda, seconded by Rhonda. All in favor? That was carried. Thanks for that one. The next one we have is the fire. So we've got 7331 to 7337. Fire Department Central Fire Hydrants, Central Furniture and Fixtures, Milverton Station, Furniture, Fixtures, and Small Equipment, Shakespeare Station, the building improvements, with Shakespeare, the radio antenna tower replacement, Shakespeare Station, the furnitures and fixtures, and the Stephenville Furniture and Fixtures. But those items set out in the production services under the Department Capital Project Reports for the February 28, 2023 budget, Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Hugh. Any comments, questions on that one? All in favor? That one's carried. And we got lots here for the next one. 7341 to 73420. The pickup purchase, the triaxle truck purchase, other equipment being the trackless sidewalk maintenance machine, confined space safety equipment, the as-built drawings and GPS work. We have line 37, pavement preservation and road 109 intersection repair. We have line 83. We have road 140 reconstruction. We have the Thompson Street reconstruction, Galt Street and Fraser Street paving. We have the Pacific Avenue reconstruction, as well as the Fulton Street reconstruction, crack sealing, Wilmot East Hope Road, storm sewer replacement, Milverton for Pacific and Fulton, roadside signs, culverts and flood pipes, general bridges, the guardrail, and we have a structure number 64, the Rolston Bridge rehabilitation, as well as the last one, the annual sidewalk replacement allocation. Those items set out in the Transportation Services under Department Capital Project Reports for the February 28th, 2023 Budget Advisory Committee meeting be received for information. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Hugh. All in favor? That one's carried too. Thank you. And we're down to the next one is the landfill property. That item set out in the Environmental Waste Services under Department Capital Project Reports for February 28, 2023 for the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee to receive for information. Moved by Hugh, seconded by Amanda. All in favor of that one? That one's carried too. Thank you. We've got the Knox Wesley Cemetery. That item is set out in the Health and Culture Services under the Department Capital Project Reports for February 28, 2023. Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Mover for that one, Amanda, seconded by Hugh. All in favor? That one's carried. And we have the water. We've got the 7.3.7.1 to 7.3.7.6 Shakespeare Water System drinking water system arsenic treatment, the Shakespeare Water System pressure tank replacement, the Milverton well number 4, the well rehabilitation. We've got water system chemical pump flow monitor installation and probe, and water main installation on Pacific Ave and Fulton Street. Those items as set out under Environment Water Services report for the February 28th, 2023 budget, Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Mover for that one, Rhonda, seconded by Amanda. Any questions on those? All in favor? That one's carried too. Thank you. And that's 7.3.8.1 to 7.3.8.5, the Shakespeare Wastewater Treatment Facility, the Milverton Wastewater Treatment Facility diffuser replacement, the the Mill Street West Pumping Station, and the sanitary sewer collection system replacement on Pacific Ave and Fulton Street. So those items set out in the Environment Wastewater Services under Department Capital Project reports for the February 28, 2023 Perth East Budget Advisory Committee meeting be received for information. Mover for that one. Moved by Hugh, seconded by Amanda. Any questions on that? All in favor? That one's carried. Capital forecast reports. Have we done that one yet? No. We're done. We're done the first part. All right, that takes us to 7.4, the capital forecast reports. Is everybody okay? You want to take a quick 5 minutes, or can we keep moving? Or we're okay? Keep moving? Okay, we will. Excellent. Who's next? Back to you, Paula.
Yes, these capital forecast reports are included for the committee's review, and certainly if there's any questions in the review of them, we can go through those. I don't have any special presentation or anything for them.
Okay, we all have those in front of us, 7.4.1 to 7.4.11, 11. Okay, that the capital forecast reports, as mentioned, the building capital, the Perth East Rec and Culture Service capital forecast, the library capital forecast, the fire vehicle forecast, the building and planning vehicle forecast, the 5-year capital forecast for roads, the public works, bridges and culverts forecast, the public works equipment, the public works vehicle forecast, sewer vehicle and equipment forecast, and the water vehicle and equipment forecast. So that those items, as set out under capital forecast reports for the February 28th, 2023 Perth East Budget Advisory Committee, be received for information. Moved by Hugh, and seconded by Rhonda. Any questions on the forecasts? None, all in favor? That one's carried. So that takes, so we're going to deal with those other items under new business, shall we? Or we keep moving on to the, okay, we'll do the correspondence. The first piece is from the Grand River Conservation Authority, and that's their draft budget. Just for information, it was approved at the Friday's meeting that I was at, and there was no changes to the draft budget. So just for your information there. I don't know if you have anything else on that one. And then we also have the Maitland Valley. Okay, we'll do 2 separate motions for those. The first one, the Grand River Conservation Authority 2022 draft budget. That the 2023 draft budget prepared by the GRCA Authority, GRCA, dated January 25th, 2023, be received by the Perth East Advisory Committee for information. So we haven't actually received that. The final, this is still draft. Okay. The mover for that, Jeremy, seconded by Amanda. Any comments or questions on that one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority 2023 draft budget prepared by Maitland Valley Conservation Authority dated January 20th, 2023 be received by the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee for information. Moved by Hugh, seconded by Bob. Any questions on that one? All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. So the first one for new business is to the Trevor Kipper Millbank District Association. The Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received that presentation from Trevor Kipper for information. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Jeremy. Questions of that? All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. Now we have another one. We have the new business or business from Bob. Bob, you want to speak to that?
Sure, so I referred to this as uncaptured assessment revenue. I guess what I'm asking is that you allow staff to make some future comments in a report to, I guess, explain what I'm getting at. I believe all municipalities have this exact same situation, and I know other municipalities have in fact hired someone to try and evaluate this situation. So what am I referring to? I think whether it's a lack of manpower from MPAC in a timely fashion, or just as you see on a fairly regular basis, applications come in to official plan amendment zoning, but it's only picked up because of a building department application, right? So that's when we find out certain businesses have been operating outside of truly what they're paying taxes for. Just a further example, someone said to me they went through a process to get the OPA, the zoning, the site plan. You know, they spent a lot of time and money to make their business legit. They pay their fair share of taxes, and they compete against people who aren't paying their fair share of taxes because they don't have the same qualifications. And he wasn't prepared to make that public or, you know, send an email to complain about anybody, but he just said, I want to make you aware that I'm competing against other businesses out there who don't do the same things that I have to do. So having said all that, I think this aligns with the typical comments that happen throughout the budget process, that you don't want any service changes and et cetera like that, but you wish to see perhaps other revenue generations. And I think this is an item where you could go through the tax roll and you could probably find some examples. There are probably other ways of doing it, but I think it's a fairly specialized position that has to interpret the building department's work and the assessment through impact as well. I'm not sure if that really identifies what I'm getting at, but I'm essentially asking that you consider all the lost monies out there that you're not collecting that you should be collecting, and it's a matter of fairness throughout the municipality. And it's not just our municipality, it's all municipalities. But anyway, it does get picked up in time, not all the time, but usually when changes do happen, but it's rather a slow process.
Okay, so that's from Bob. We'll put that on the floor for a staff report.
Sorry, I just have a point of quick clarification of
Okay, go ahead. Brandon.
just unclear what we're exactly asking, because I think you mentioned that certain other municipalities have hired somebody to do this work, and so I think we just need some clarification as to what I get the opportunity and the problem. I just want to understand what we're specifically asking and of who. Like, you're asking for us to hire a position for someone to do this? Is this something that our finance department has to take on in addition? I'm just trying to get some clarity on what we're specifically asking.
You want to speak? Go ahead, Bob.
Sure. No, as I indicated, I thought this purpose was to have the committee understand what I was asking and generate a staff report, and I think the staff could probably speak to this much clearer than I can articulate it. So the ask tonight, demand, is just that there be a follow-up report, and you can take it from there.
Yeah, go ahead, Rhonda.
Well, I'm kind of with Amanda. I'm not 100% sure what the ask is. I know there are businesses out there, so are we asking staff to have someone go door to door and find these, or are we, like right now, we operate on complaint, written complaint, not just verbal. So I'm just a little confused too what we're asking staff to do or to look into. Like, if someone wants to expand their business, and yeah, sometimes they need to, it's the word I'm looking for, legal. They're non-conforming now, and so they go through the process. So staff already does that when they come forward. So I'm just a little fuzzy on what the ask really is.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? So, Bob, you want to comment, Mike? Or
Yeah, this is more of a general comment through the chair as it relates to some things that we're looking at from a staff level is we're focusing on maybe a carrot approach, I would say, looking at doing business spotlights within and working with the economic development group in the county as well, where we highlight and spotlight businesses using our own social media aspects, our website, and our community guide for those businesses that do have appropriate zoning in place, do have appropriate assessment established. We're going to give them the opportunity to come work with us to spotlight their businesses. So that's something that we're exploring at a staff level now, kind of through our own kind of economic development, approaching it, as the carrot as opposed to the stick. So I just wanted to share that with the committee, that we are looking for ways to be creative to try and address the inequities that exist. We're not naive to them, but it is a challenge for sure. And we have had some conversations with other municipalities that have looked at different approaches. So yeah, to the initial question about a report, we can prepare a report based on our conversations about which things have worked and haven't worked. And that's something that's perhaps council in the future could consider. But I thought it worthwhile to talk about, maybe it's not just about the stick. It's other ideas that promote businesses, that we can help businesses come forward and give them an opportunity to highlight their business when they do have the appropriate assessment, they do have the appropriate zoning, they do have the appropriate licensing. Those are things that I think are seen as positive for both them and for us as a municipality.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Andrew, go ahead.
No, thank you, Chair Smith. So this has been talked about since I've been on council, and that's how long? Too long? 12 years or whatever. So, and it seems to be going nowhere, and I do get complaints about this too. So I think a staff report would be a good first step to understand whether we need to investigate it further, if there can possibly be, a vision of how bad the situation is, or it might not even be worth following up on. So I think to make a decision on something like this, we need information to make the decision. So the logical step would be a staff report.
Okay. So shall we wish to proceed, Bob? Do you wish to make a motion?
Well, I guess I would ask staff to, might ask this committee to support the idea of a staff report with regards to this uncaptured assessment revenue.
Okay, so that's moved by Bob, seconded by Jeremy. Any more comments, questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. What else do we have? Slideshow. Can you bring that one back up, Matt? There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Couple things to consider. Should we do it? The first one is the reserve for the community investment. Look at putting 20,000 back into that so we can get to close to our levels pre-COVID. Hugh?
Yeah, I understand the reserve and its importance. But I mean, this year, if we don't change anything, we're looking at, with the county, something like a 15 or greater % increase in taxes. And that seems like an awful small number. And if we keep it as we have it for one more year, and hopefully next year will be a far better year than this year, and if we move the other money to cover the wages and that, hopefully we could shave 2% off the number. Might not seem like a lot, but I know when we do the average tax increases, mine are never near the average. So I think for this year, for the percentage that everything's going up, that it's a small amount, but if you add those two together, it would make a bit of difference for some people.
Okay, so I'm, from my understanding, you say do not put the 20 in, but keep.
Just keep the 20 in. Don't put it up to 52.
Gotcha. Any other comments on that one? Jeremy?
Yeah, I think in the slide we saw earlier, the total total percent increase was more like 5 something with the county, not 15. The county's was a little bit lower than ours, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the overall increase for a typical residential property at 300,000 assessment equates to a 5.16% increase.
Okay, Rhonda?
But that's using 6.07, so is that what we're at, or are we at 7 point something? Right?
So
I guess
the
that's
overall
where I'm a
levy
little
piece
confused.
is 6.11, Paula, and then how that translates across the different property types, I think that's where we're hung up a little bit.
Yeah. So overall assessment levy increase is the 7.56% as we stand now. When you take off the growth, it's 6.11%.
Okay.
But then across the various classes, it's going to vary based on that percentage of the overall assessment for per fees.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Good, thank you.
That's new growth. That's not assessment growth.
Yes, the assessment growth is, yep.
Very good. Okay, and then now we go to a couple of motions there left. Yep.
Do we want to go back to the levy slide again? Just
sure. That might have been where the confusion was a little bit. Because I was at 7, using 7 point something. What else would you like to talk about?
so yeah, I think the council wanted to kind of talk about the second and third bullet. Maybe I misinterpreted, but that's what I heard, and they have just a conversation. So.
Yep. So the second bullet is the 20,000, not 52.9. We're gonna put 20 in, and then as far as the third bullet, someone help me here. Go ahead, Paula.
That's the bullet, the suggestion within the operating budget that was presented. If you wanted to bring that overall levy increase down because it was an unusually high year for the CPI at the 5.867, it's proposed that you could draw from your corporate reserves to bring that down back to the average 2 to 3% CPI. And that would potentially decrease your levy by that 1.6 to 2.14%, depending on what you wanted to draw it down to. Now, I would caution on that. You're drawing down your reserves, so you wouldn't have that money to use in the future.
What's the committee's wish on that one? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'd say we're not out of the woods on any of this economic stuff yet. All the indicators are it's not going to get better. So I appreciate that people want to do recreation, but in my opinion, and I think if you stack that up to plowing the road and having good fire service, that the recreation may happen in your backyard. It's a very small amount of money, and I think that there's a lot of people already struggling and a huge tax hit. So draw down the maximum we can, we're comfortable with, and keep the community reserve where it is at $20,000. Because I don't think we're even close to out of the woods yet.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so would you like to take it down to a normal CPI increase of 3% or 2%? From what I understand, you're wanting to go to a 2% increase.
I think during budget visioning, if I'm not mistaken, what was the average ask? I know obviously things have changed. I think it was around 5.
5.867. Yeah. So if you take that down to a 3% CPI increase, the 5.867 down to a 3%, that would involve a draw of 148,000 on the corporate reserves, and that would bring your the assessment growth, it would come down from the 6.11 to a 4.6. Or the 1.6% it would come down. Is that?
You understand that, Mike?
I just want to remind, and Paula addressed this in the slides, we are this year, because we still have a quite aggressive capital forecast, we are already drawing down our reserves about 1.3 million, a net draw this year. So it's fairly significant in terms of our trending. So yeah, I just wanted that as a reminder. I'm not suggesting that trying to draw down the reserves on to reduce the overall levy impact is certainly an option for council, but yeah, it's one of those situations to the previous comment. Yeah, we're not sure what things are going to look like from a tender process this year. We're hopeful, but that's all we are really. So even our budget numbers, we've done our best we could to forecast what we think the capital program is going to look like, but I don't think it's naive for us to think that we may need to come back to council when things are over budget when we go to tender. And typically where we want to go with that is our reserves as opposed to anything else. So again, it's certainly the committee's option, but we are trying to continue to be aggressive with a capital program we think it makes sense, but drawing down the reserves at a certain point becomes burdensome for us in future years.
Any other comments, Jeremy?
Yeah, Paula, can you just confirm this? The corporate reserve at the beginning of 2022 was just over 2 million. We drew that down by 480,000 in 2022. We're contributing back to it 122,000. And is the suggestion now that we'd be taking another 140,000 ish out of that to draw it down? So we'd be sitting at about a 1.6 million there ish.
Yes, you would be sitting at, I'm just doing some quick math, 1.32 based on revisions now. My numbers are a little different than what went out in the package.
Okay.
Because of year to date for 2022 activity. So at the end of 2022, right now, we're projected at a 1.3.
Not a 1.5 like
No.
it says here.
No.
Okay.
So you'd be down to that 1.3.
So we're actually drawing out more like 600,000, 700. Not the 480. That's on page 15.
For 2022.
Yeah.
You're pulling, 656.
656.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other, Andrew, I'll let you go again.
Yeah, thanks. So what's the number if we shoot for the 5%? How much out of reserves to shoot for the 5% increase instead of 4.2 or what? That's the 140,000 you mentioned earlier. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Is it?
So if you take that 5.867% CPI now and you drop that down to 3%, you're pulling 148,000.
Okay. And the result will be a 4.1% tax levy increase.
A 4.6.
4.6.
After growth.
Okay, so to get to a tax increase of 5%, what number would that be to pull? Sorry.
You're really testing me now. Just a second. Yeah, if you pulled 100,000, you'd be at a 5.03%.
If I just may, really quickly, so like with wages, you give a 5% increase a year, that 5% stays forever, just like this document too. It stays forever. You're always building percentages on top of percentages, right? Keeps going up and up and up. So a small amount down the road will be a big deal in my opinion. I know that's always the grief from wages to people at the top end, and not just in municipalities, everywhere get a big increase and everybody else does it, but it's compounding. The gap gets farther and farther away constantly. So I think we can do a little bit to stave it off, at least a one-time thing, and reevaluate. That would be my opinion.
Okay, anyone else? Sounds like Andrew, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you said move that to 100,000? We all need to be happy and confident and understand what we're doing. So, any other comments on this one? Bob?
Anytime this comes up, whether it was at the county or here, about drawing down reserves and reducing the levy, my concern is always that next year you already start off with having to raise that extra money because the levy is going to be what it is this year and whatever next year is. And having said what we don't know, next year I expect will be something much the same. I don't think we're going to see it overnight drop down to the 2 to 3% that we lived with for many years. So if it's another 5 or 6% next year, then that $100,000 already creates more than you've asked for this year, right? In the 5% direction to staff. So I appreciate that it's a difficult year, but when I look at the numbers on the average residential assessment, it works out to what, $3 a week at Perth East. So I don't consider that to be a problem for me to explain when that was the direction given, and the consequences are that municipal CPI, as I like to refer to it, is much different than your average cost of living for the person that's buying the bread and the gas. Like, our expenses are much more, and I wish we would really stop as a province referring to CBI as if it's all the expenses that get made up into a municipal expenditure, and it's not, but that's what we compare it to. So anyway, enough said.
Okay, so what's council's wish on this? We need something. Sounds like if we just leave it, then we just go with what's presented. Rhonda?
I'll move that we leave the transfer at 20,000 for the community investment reserve, and we leave the budget the way it is, that we don't take any more money out of the operating.
Okay, that's probably close to what we have, maybe, perhaps. Yes. So Rhonda moves that. Amanda seconds. Make that later. That the draft budget reviewed at the February 28th, 2023 Township of Perth East Budget Advisory Committee meeting result in a levy increase of 7.56% before assessment growth and 6.11% after assessment growth. And further, that a total of 20,000 be transferred to the community investment reserve. So moved by Rhonda, that was seconded by Amanda. Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks, everyone. And this one, operation and capital budgets approval recommendation of the Perth East Budget Advisory Committee recommend to Perth East Council the approval of the 2023 operation and capital budgets in principle, and the final budget bylaw be presented at the March 21st, 2023 regular council meeting. Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Hugh. Any more comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Yep. So we didn't have a closed session on any announcements. Hugh has an announcement.
Upper Thames annual meeting today, and they produced this report card of all the water and trees and all that kind of stuff. So if anybody wants to have some heavy duty reading and want to look at it, I'll be more than pleased. Let's have a look at it.
Thanks, Hugh. Anything else? Jeremy's going to read that tonight. This next one here, that the meeting of the Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be adjourned at 9:15 p.m. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Rhonda. All in favor? That's great. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Paula. And all staff. Great job. Yeah, awesome.